Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. This morning, our guests are Matt Whitermore and Dan Odabashian. Thanks for being on the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, Dan and Matt each spent a decade in real estate in the industry before teaming up in 2019 to invest in multifamily and commercial real estate. Since then, they launched their real estate investment company, New Scotland Capital LLC, which is based in Albany, New York. They're engaged in real estate development, investment, property management, and brokerage activities through New Scotland development companies in New York's capital region with $20 million total assets under management. Dan and Matt have long been involved in the multifamily sector, but have recently launched an initiative to acquire campgrounds and RV parks. That's interesting also. Guys, welcome to the show. Just by getting to speak just a few minutes before we started recording, it's interesting, just hearing your different unique abilities and a little bit about, how you all form this partnership. I've personally experienced, and seen it many times in our industry and many others when two guys or gals have unique abilities, and then it's like they bring these things together. It's like, man, the sky's the limit then, right? So many different things can start to happen. But I'd love to hear a little more about that. Why don't you all highlight, because I think it's valuable to the listeners too, just as we talk about your partnership, to hear a little bit about your backgrounds, your unique abilities, how they complement one another, and what that has done even in this short period of time, moving forward. I think a lot of people are hesitant to partner, right? And I said no many times, but man, these guys are doing big things now because of this partnership. So get us started.
Sure, Dan, I'll actually let you take the lead on that one there.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. My expertise had been is primarily in operational management of multifamily real estate, and got into it like most people do, just trying to buy some two families, smaller properties, and that led me to realizing that I needed a property manager, and so was doing it on my own, was growing the portfolio, and realized, who better to do it than myself. I had the time. So that led me to launching a property management company, and started doing some third-party management for some other people, and in parallel to building my portfolio. And that led to, getting into more management and development opportunities, and which, kind of the natural next step, so to speak, of creating active apartments and not just buying them. So that's how I started in the business. And Matt, I'll let you kind of.
Sure. So my background is primarily in real estate finance. I was a financial analyst doing debt and equity placement for different types of commercial and investment real estate. And back in 2017, 2018, actually got into the software world of investment management and real estate syndication. So I was actually a sales engineer for one of the leading investment management software providers. And that was a crash course in everything real estate private equity. I got to see probably hundreds, if not thousands, of different syndication and distribution structures and operating agreements, and always knew I wanted to get into it for myself. So I'd say if I have any special skill, which, definitely a humbling thing to think about, because we're getting our start here and we're ambitious, but, we got a lot of work to do. But I would say it's putting myself out there, and that's what really led to the partnership here with Dan, which was something you alluded to, Whitney. And so I think that might have some value for the listeners, because it's not why you set out to do direct mail, and it wasn't what I was expecting. I was expecting to find properties to buy. So I had sent out a batch of direct mail to the Albany area, and one of them was Dan's properties. So he gave me a call and gave me a ridiculous price for his property that was not even on this planet. So there was no deal to be had, but we kept in touch, and
of course I'll sell it, right? I mean, of course.
Yeah.
For the right price.
Well, I'm not looking to sell, but there's always a price.
I think what he said was, my wife would kill me if she knew I'm talking to you, but so
well, it wasn't even about, it was about a personal house, a home I was renovating with my wife. It wasn't even about one of my, bigger multifamily properties that I own. So.
Okay. So Matt, you were trying to get into the business. You had this background as a financial analyst, and you noticed, or you got to look through really, tons of deals and how they were structured, the operating agreements, all those things, which is great experience, right?
Sure.
That's so much knowledge right there just in that. But then Dan had the operational management. He'd been buying properties, been in real estate, for a number of years on the operational side. And so, Dan, you received that mail, or you weren't interested in selling, but why did you call him?
I just, I had never, up until that point, I hadn't received a whole ton of direct mail marketing. I didn't know much about it. It wasn't something, and I was just curious as to what his goals and ambitions were. And if he was actually he wrote, it was more of like a heartfelt letter about, he and his fiance looking for a home in the capital region. They're looking to move there. And I kind of wanted to, see if he was real or not. And yeah.
So what was it next then that, I guess what I'm trying to get to is to the point that you all knew that this could be a good partnership. You both had unique skills where, both of you could help one another. How did it get to that point? And you knew that this is worth a partnership. Because personally, I treated that like a marriage. And so I said no many, many times, to many people who tried to partner before. I actually said, you know what, I believe, my business partner now, before I knew that this is right. We have, there's many things there that we agreed on, or just had in common, but then there was many unique abilities and skill sets that we each had that the other did not.
Sure.
How did you all get to that point and know that this was worth moving forward as a partnership?
Great question. And I think it's something that's integral to our business model. And, so it's going on 2 years now that we've been working together in some capacity. And I think the important thing was to partner on smaller things first. We have a brokerage business. Dan has the property management business. We've done some wholesaling. So we set out first to build what we internally call the deal machine, which I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there that refer to their deal machine as that too. But and then we wanted multiple ways to monetize all those deals. So we basically started looking for everything 2 units and up with no maximum around the capital region. And we said, you know what, obviously we're not going to be able to buy all of these. That would be great if we could, but let's come up with 4 or 5 different ways that we could possibly monetize these leads once we move past the point of they didn't accept our offer or we're too far apart, what have you. So we worked on Oh, go ahead, Whitney.
Well, I wanted to back up a little bit though. Way back, I guess, you received the mailer, Dan reached out. What was the next steps? And because I get that, like I said, I get the question often about partnerships, right? And so how did you all know that this was the right thing to do? Partnering in general.
I think it's hard to pinpoint one point in time where
right. Or any vetting process. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think we were both vetting each other and not in a negative way, just seeing
right.
How things went. And Matt was moving the area. He wanted to get into real estate. He had a day job in sales and software, and he met with us. I'm sure he met with a bunch of other brokerages, and and because he needed a place to hang his license. So that's kind of how the relationship formed. And then he kept pushing for more and more and more, and which is kind of a rare thing from my experience in the brokerage world, when an agent is just so laser focused on selling, because that's the only way they can make money. But it was very clear that he was into a lot more than that. So, pitched us on the deal machine idea. And I was like, well, that seems like it could work. And it started working. And then, a new idea was coming every week. And then I started bouncing my ideas off of him. And you just kind of it's just kind of naturally evolved into, hey, let's just, go for it. And Matt quit his job, and here we are with New Scotland Capital.
No, that's awesome. So Matt had ideas, and he was saying, hey, what if we tried this? And Dan, you saw value in that. You saw he had skills that could add a lot of value, and you all could help each other. And so, no, that's awesome. Well, tell me about. So go ahead, Matt, with your conversation a little bit about different things you all were trying together, doing, and now you're up to this deal machine. I'm sure the listeners thinking, what's this deal machine?
Sure. I mean, it's nothing too sophisticated. I'd call it a set of integrated systems for marketing and sales automation, direct mail, cold calling, and just creating the database and the engine that gives us inbound leads. But yeah, I mean, I think it was just all about baby steps. It was first, okay, hang the license. That's some sort of relationship. Okay, we're starting to look at deals. We're bouncing things off each other. That's developing the relationship. So, it's just been keeping that ball rolling. And, it's rare that you find someone that has kind of the same vision in terms of ambition. And we think about deals the same way. And you mentioned Dan has a lot of the operational experience, and that's exactly what I was missing. So when I think about building a team, it's building a puzzle and what puzzle pieces are missing, and just trying to find that match. So I think that's where we've built some momentum.
So what about, since the partnership, what has that allowed you all to do? I know you elaborated on different things. You started with small deals. Have you all noticed, that you've been able to move faster, or that things, you've been able to do things you haven't noticed you ever thought of before, or like what's happened since then, and where do you see, what's your focus now, since you all began?
I think it's, we've sort of stabilized what we're calling the deal machine, and we're at the point where we're bringing in other people to do most of the to managing it, to really take ownership of it. So like an acquisitions person, if you will, to take some of that off my plate. We definitely want to increase the average deal size. We definitely saw it as important to not discriminate on deals that are too small, because, like I referred to as baby steps. We bought a 3 unit and then a 20 unit. And, now we're touring commercial properties and campgrounds, and, hoping to close on some bigger deals this spring that are in the works now. So just baby steps. And, I think since we have the deal machine stabilized, bringing other people in to take on some of that work, it frees us up. And that's the main focus is, how do we automate things? How do we give ourselves more time to focus on the things that are growing the business, which is acquisitions, building relationships with lenders, raising capital. Just keeping an eye on scaling.
Yeah. Well, let's pivot just a little bit, because I'd like to hear more about like your focus on campgrounds and RV parks. That's not something we've heard much on the show. And so tell me a little bit about, from your operational background, your financial analyst background, how you all decided to focus on campgrounds and RV parks, and what is it about that asset class that you like?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I wouldn't say our focus is necessarily specifically on campgrounds and RV parks, but I've been doing multifamily real estate in the capital region for almost 10 years now, and I remember when you could buy things for $40,000-$50,000 a unit, and now there's deals going for $100 a unit, and it's just so competitive. And the downstate New York City metro market has really come into play. They're buying things at much lower cap rates. So it was really more of a factor of the asset class we're in is getting so competitive, we got to figure something else out. So, we're looking at mobile home parks, RV parks, campgrounds, and just trying to diversify and find better deals with higher cap rates and industries that kind of have more of a frontier aspect, so to speak.
Yeah, I kind of want to piggyback on that, and I think it's a good lesson for putting yourself out there and having more of a why not attitude when new opportunities come about, because the first RV park campground that we looked at was really by accident. I had been prospecting to mobile home park owners, and campground is a true seasonal campground, no mobile home component. He was in the list, and he emailed me back and said, "Sorry, this is not a mobile home park, but are you interested in RV parks?" And I said, "Why not?" And we explored it, and this was like a year ago now. And, we said, holy crap, this cash flow is insane. And, think about, say it's a property that has $1 million in cash flow. And we, sat down and said, how long would it take us to get $1 million in cash flow on these small multifamily properties that we're doing? Like it could take us a decade. So that was really the nexus of it. And then we just really dug in and did our homework, met with some operators, and now it's a year later, and we have, our first real opportunities that we're planning on closing this spring, early summer.
Yeah, and I think
go ahead, Dan.
No, I was just going to real quick, why, you asked about the focus shifting to that is we were looking at mobile home parks, we were looking at self-storage, these different asset classes, and realizing that they're also getting somewhat competitive. And when Matt stumbled upon the RV park, we were like, oh, well, this seems similar, but different. And, let's just dig into this a little bit more.
What is it about what's a few things maybe you've learned about campgrounds and RV parks or that make it cash flow like that, or maybe things that maybe you didn't know about ahead of time that makes this a valuable asset class to jump into and learn?
I'll jump in there. Some really positive things and also some challenges we've learned. Cap rates are high. There's a lot of demand due to, the unfortunate circumstances of COVID. Camping has seen a tremendous growth in demand. RV park or RV sales themselves, the vehicles are through the roof. So campgrounds are selling out. And one of the things that we really like about a lot of the opportunities we look at is they come with a lot of vacant raw land and room for expansion. And it's not like building another apartment building or adding floors or, it's adding utilities, maybe doing some excavating to put in water lines and clearing trees. It is real estate development, but it's not construction. It's a little simpler and straightforward. So, a lot of positives on the financial end. And, I think every challenge can be a positive too, but we've learned that they're a challenge to finance, especially with banks. Not that it's impossible, but it is a completely different animal than an apartment building, an office building, shopping center, what have you. So that's what we're working through. Seller financing is a great tool in the industry because sellers realize that, I think, and they're more open to seller financing than your average apartment owner or mobile home park owner.
How do you get financing? Or I guess what's the big hold? I can understand why there's no building, right? There's no, I can see why there would be some issues there. How do you get financing on a property like that? And it's funny that we're having this conversation. Just yesterday, we were looking at some places to camp. And there was there's a big place in South Carolina. You all may even know it. It's like the largest campground in the country. There's 800 and some slots or whatever, 300 and some acre property. Some family that's owned this. There's a mile of beachfront or something too, they claim. It's interesting. I thought about, wow, I was thinking, what we're talking about. I was thinking about, okay, think about the income from that size of property. I was just trying to go through the real estate side of that type of operation. But even managing something like that, I don't know anything about managing an RV park. But on what you talked about there, financing, Tell us a few tips on or the difficulties and how you've got around that, or are you all strictly looking for seller financing?
We're not strictly looking for seller financing. We think, we have two deals right now. One is going to be seller financed, and one we're going on the bank financing track. And I think it's going to be incredibly educational to at least make the effort to bank finance it. And that property creates a little bit of hair for a bank that, there's a bar and restaurant and a whole, slew of moving parts that might make it a challenge for a bank. So we'll see. We'll keep you posted on that one. But I would say get familiar with an SBA lender and learn all the different qualifications and disqualifications, I guess they'll call them, that would pertain to a campground, because it's probably pretty hard to find a campground that is SBA eligible, especially in the Northeast, because they don't like the seasonal properties. And by that, I mean full season rentals. They like them to be transient, stays under 30 days. They want the majority of the income to come from stays that are shorter than 30 days, which I would argue for an investment model, I'd rather have all seasonal customers that are paying me all that money before they even show up. So, yeah.
Well, I want to ask you about, how you prepare for a downturn, but I thought you could speak to, like RV parks or campgrounds, that type of thing, but also I'd love your opinion about multifamily, since y'all are experienced in that. I love hearing from operators, how do you prepare for a downturn? For an investor asks you that, like, what's your response?
Dan, you want to take that one?
Yeah. I mean, I get that question all the time from prospective investors and current management clients, because we do a fair amount of third-party management with the management company. And in our specific market, the rental market is so strong between all of the government, jobs, all of the universities up here, all of the hospitals. And, it's funny because the capital region area doesn't really swing one way or the other too much, as far as, in the bad times, property values seem to, not go crazy down, and in the really good times, they don't go crazy up. So it's just a stable, nice cash flowing market. And yeah, there's been challenges with the pandemic, but we've just seen more slow paying renters than anything else. New York State hasn't been, it's been one of the more liberal states in terms of restrictions and eviction moratoriums. But, it also, right before the pandemic, there was new tenant laws passed, and, people were a little down on that. But I've always seen it as there's always going to be regulations, and you need to be able to comply with them. And if you can't figure out a strategy that's profitable, then you probably shouldn't be in the business. They're never going to be that restrictive. They're never going to be, they exist for a reason. So,
yeah. And, as far as going into the pandemic and what you all already did have under management, is there anything that you can say, because we did this, we have done better, through the pandemic or through a downturn? Anything specifically, maybe the way you underwrote something, or maybe your cash reserves or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think like on the 20 unit deal Matt referenced, we did mostly underwriting in the last, 5-6 months. So, we were super aggressive about getting rent estoppels and verifying rents and getting outstanding balances and really holding the owner to that than we would have been before the pandemic. Matt, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I'd say exactly that. Just we've been fortunate with the portfolio under management as Dan alluded to, it hasn't really hit us too hard there. Maybe it's a slightly higher, vacancy rate, economic vacancy. But where it has hit us is in the due diligence and in the underwriting where, we just have to be that much more careful because it's a little scary, closing on a deal and they're new tenants to you and you don't know, people fabricate things all the time in real estate transactions. So you just got to check your work 3-4 times and go over it again and again and again and come up with creative ideas and maybe ask for credits or, work different sorts of insurance policies into the contract. And so that's, I think, and if anything, that's a good thing. It's a lesson in some, harder than normal due diligence, if you will.
Do you all have any predictions for the next, say, 6 to 12 months in the real estate market? Just what you expect and how you're planning for that?
I think the vaccination news that's coming out is pretty positive. That's kind of what I look to in recent days of trying to project what might happen. So I think I'm also, for the most part, an optimist. So I think, especially for the multifamily space, there's better days looking ahead. And one thing I will say, maybe on the less positive side, we keep in touch with an attorney that does evictions for us. So we're always kind of checking his pulse. And, we do anticipate a pretty serious backlog of evictions. So something to watch out for, I would say.
Yeah, that goes back to those team members, doesn't it? I mean, having somebody like that you can be just checking with all the time. Go ahead, Dan.
No, I was just going to say more specifically to the capital region market, we're seeing the housing market is like single family homes and 2-3 families is just going nuts right now because there's an influx of people from bigger metro areas who, maybe they're moving back here. They're originally from the area and they're working from home. Maybe they just want a smaller, cheaper market to live in and they're working from home. So, in a way, Albany and the capital region has really, benefited from, the market's gotten much stronger during COVID because of that.
Guys, do you all have any daily habits that you are disciplined about that have helped you achieve success?
I have a default calendar, which I find, I know there's certain things that I need to get done every single day and I need to set aside time and they're in my calendar every single day. And I've found that super helpful in terms of, I tell people I could sit and just answer and converse over email pretty much all day, but that's not a very efficient way to budget your time, in my opinion.
Can you elaborate on what a default calendar is? What does that mean?
I just have blocks of time, set in my calendar. I know, at least almost every day I'm going to have to do invoicing for, management. So I have an hour set aside for that. Every day I'm going to need to look at leasing, maintenance, outstanding balances. So I have 20-minute blocks set aside for those on different days. Things like that, just predictable blocks of time. And then you can schedule your other appointments around those, or if there's conflict, you can move those blocks of time around your appointments.
No, that's awesome. That's all. You need that default time so you can get things done you have to do, right? What about you, Matt?
So I would say it's actually one of the books you recommend on your website, Whitney, The Miracle Morning. And I read the book and I had a good stretch of where I, created my full morning routine and was doing it. And that does waver, I'll have to admit. But I think the main takeaway that I took from that book was every morning before I start my day, write down what absolutely has to get done today. Because especially, in a small business like we have where we're wearing lots of different hats, you can just get lost in your day so easily. And we always talk about the difference between being productive and being active. Sometimes it feels good to be active, but you're not always being productive. So if you just 2, 3, 4 things that you got to get done for the day. Just lay them out before you start your day. And I think it leads to being more productive.
Couldn't agree more. No, both of those things you said are I've just seen it in so many successful entrepreneurs, including myself. I mean, changing that morning routine, being up early, making those things happen has been so crucial. That consistency over a long period of time. But what about your best source for meeting new investors right now?
Great question. So it goes back to, I think the way we design this business is that we're doing all sorts of different types of real estate transactions, brokerage, management, wholesaling. And the vision from the beginning was that all these people are prospective investors. You know, we've taken, I cold call somebody because I want to buy their property and it's not on the table immediately. And it comes up that they're having trouble leasing an apartment. So I lease an apartment for them. Then they call me 2 months later and they're ready to sell the property. And you know what? Now that person is a prospective investor because we have that relationship now. So we just try and build relationships any way we can. And then they all go in the bucket of this is now a prospective, passive or active investor, hopefully passive. You know, we're trying to build out the syndication end of things. So that's how we think about our daily interactions.
What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
I'd have to just go back to that and the vertically integrated business, because the goal was always big apartment and commercial real estate deals. But we took baby steps to get there, and it's proving to be, effective, and it's a long-term game. So we still got a long way to go, but we've got a nice network that, like I said, we've managed their properties, we've listed their properties, rented their apartments, purchased properties from them. And, now they're potential investors.
And how do you like to give back?
Yeah, I mean, for us, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I'll be quick and then Dan can jump in. I think we try to make it part of our mission in our business. First and foremost, we like to provide good, safe, clean housing in all, neighborhoods and for all people in our community. But other than that, typically we choose some organizations locally. I've noticed a habit that I typically do this stuff around the holidays. So my conscious effort is to do it year round instead of just around the holidays when it comes to mind.
Yeah, and to build on that, for us, it's just really important to be actively engaged in the specific communities we're owning and acquiring properties in. And smaller cities like Albany, they really need leaders, on the community level. And our industry and our skill sets kind of naturally translate into that role. We like to donate and time and money to smaller organizations like Matt referenced, Historic Albany Foundation, the neighborhood associations. There's a lot of different, local arts and theater and orchestra, because those things are what really build the community and make people want to live where we're, owning and operating real estate. So, I think it's really important to donate time more than money, and try to be a leader in those types of things.
Yeah, a lot of times we just think about donating financially, don't we? Want to think about our time as much, and time is so valuable, and people will often value that even more than if you handed them cash, right? So anyway, thank you guys so much, Dan and Matt. Just grateful to get to know you all and hear about your partnership. It's helpful, I think, to a lot of listeners who are attempting to do the same thing or looking for that partner, that has those unique abilities and skill sets that are complementary to their own, and just hearing about how you all met and really not just shutting that off there. Right. You all did, you further investigated the potential of a partnership and did the small things together and then grew into bigger things. And then just going into even the campgrounds and RV parks. Like I said, it's not something we hear on the show much. So it's neat to hear and your flexibility to say, you know what, this looks like an opportunity. Let's go investigate it. Right. Maybe this is something and not just, having your blinders on completely and saying, nope, we're just staying over here. But being willing to do that, I just think that's a skill set almost in itself. But guys, grateful to meet you. Tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Whitney. You can reach us at our website, newscotlandcapital.com. And we both have emails there, Matt at newscotlandcapital.com and Dan at newscotlandcapital.com.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.